So I'd like to bid everybody a warm welcome to this program. It is truly a landmark program that we're very, very proud to be able to present at WAN-IFRA. And for the first time, really, because I think we've had a great partner in Google. So thank you very much, Google News Initiative, for putting together, for coming to us actually to ask us to put together this program for professionals who are coming back to the newsroom or back to the news industry. It is a problem. I've been a journalist myself for 20 over years, and I've seen this, the changes that happen so quickly in our industry, and folks who have left perhaps for some months or even some years, and then they come back to the newsroom. They find a totally different environment. So this is the program that will help hopefully bring everybody up to speed, and then give everyone a greater confidence in what's taking place in the industry. So a quick round of introductions. My name is Junie Lau. I've been a journalist in Singapore for the last 20 over years. I actually started my career in broadcast. Actually, my background is in law, and then I got called to the bar, and then after that I decided that wasn't really for me. I went back to my internship home, which was before it was Channel News Asia. It was actually the Singapore Broadcasting Corporation. I started there as a student, really, after my A-levels. And then after I graduated, I applied for a job there, and I went back. So I'd been around the shop. I've been a field reporter. I volunteered to be on the website. So we built the first news website in Singapore in the 90s. I've been through that whole growth curve. I went off to do my master's. I came back, was on the website. Then I went to current affairs because I wanted to do long form television. And then I've been around the newsroom, really, literally. I've been on news programs, as well as the foreign desk. And then I went back to the local news desk as an editor. So I've kind of like been through that whole literally around the shop. With me, of course, a very, very instrumental part of this program is Jen Teo, who you've all met, I think, spoken to her either on the phone or seen her emails. Jen is our Deputy Director of Training and Special Projects, and a key person in this program and putting it so well together. So if I can just give you a very quick overview of the program and what to expect. It is running from April to June. And it comprises several sessions of training. So 5 sessions, and I'll introduce the trainers to you very shortly. Starting today, and we'll do the program introduction. We'll do a round of introductions as well with participants who'd like to get to know all of you. And then this week, it's a very busy week for us and a very exciting week as well. So please join us for the Asian Media Leaders E-Summit. I think all of you have already received your registrations, and come and listen to the great lineup of speakers that we have for 3 days. There are sessions 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, so that there's time for breaks and time to attend to children, to parents, and so on, people who need your care. And then we'll do a post-summit reflection on the 21st of April here. And then on the 5th of May, the training continues. So we have a group, we have Paula, who's leading our training. With Corrinne, you'll also meet for quite a few sessions, and also guest speakers who will be coming into the program. Okay, so, and then the personal coaching sessions involved as well. I'll do a quick round of introductions first, Paula, and then Corrinne, and then after that, let's get to know everybody. So Paula is a long-time collaborator with WAN-IFRA. I first met her in, of all places, Myanmar. Can you imagine? So she was our one of the trainers at an event that I was actually facilitating at. And she has been, for more than 3 decades, a journalist, editor, trainer, and a media manager. She was also the editor for the Saturday Star and a former regional director for Interpress Service in Africa. She herself has been through 3 maternity breaks. I've gone through 2. I've got 2 daughters, 12 and 15, and I think Paula will tell you more about her children. She is very accomplished, and she's also been a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University, and has served in various capacities on the Nieman Advisory Board. She's been the president of the New Humanitarian, which is a Geneva-based independent news agency, a trustee for Africa Check, and a founding director for Accountability Lab South Africa. How she packs it all in, I really don't know. So we shall ask her to share some of her secrets later. Okay, and with us also today is Corrinne Podger. You will hear from her later in the session. Corrinne is also a longtime collaborator with WAN-IFRA, and she's the director of Digital Skills Agency, where she trains hundreds of journalists around the world, mobile journalism, social media, multimedia, digital first strategy, and she also lectures at the University of Melbourne from time to time. She herself has been a long-time print, online, radio, social media, television journalist for 20 years and more. And also she continues to write as well for the International Journalist Network and Digital Content Next. So we'll look forward to seeing Corrinne in a little while later.
Thank you very much, Junie, and thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. It's been really interesting to listen to everyone's stories, and I'm hoping that over the next 3 months we'll get to know each other really well, and we'll be able to support you in kind of developing a career plan, but also to get the most out of these sessions in order to rejoin the newsroom. So I want to start off with the reasons for my breaks. So these are my three children, and like Lily, I was actually in America. I'm following my husband who was studying when my daughter was born. It was one of those pivotal moments, actually, when when my daughter was born, and I think it was because I was a spouse and so I was having a lot of time to think. But I remember looking at my daughter and thinking, my mother had such a huge impact on my career, on my life. I mean, what she did raising her children in really difficult circumstances, and then apartheid South Africa. I remember looking at my daughter and thinking, my mother had such a huge impact on my life. What kind of impact would I have on her life? And so over in Stanford in America, I made the decision that really I wanted to be the kind of journalist that influenced policy. So I wanted to write stories, yes, but I also wanted to be able to decide what stories would be written. And so when we came back to South Africa, I remember feeling like a lot of you, right, having had this. By then, it was about an 18-month gap, and really having to get back into the newsroom and really being driven by this need to do something, and to make an impact. My second child was a bit of an unexpected. We were back for less than a year when I fell pregnant with Keegan, um, and took a 3 month break at this time when I was struggling really to get a foothold in the newsroom, and so took 3 months off and came back into a newsroom that was a little bit hostile. But my third child, David, who they're holding there, was born 3.5, 4 years later. And by the time David was born, I had gone from reporter to city desk editor to night editor, and while I was on maternity leave with David, I was actually appointed editor of the Saturday Star, which was the biggest newspaper in South Africa. And so when I went back after David's birth, it really was going back into I don't know, into a fairly hostile environment, and a number of people who really felt that they should have been appointed editor, um, and then having to deal with the fact that I had three children under the age of 7, and then having to cope with this really, really big job. But one of the things that I'm hoping to be able to share with you, when Junie and Jen told me about this training program, I was really, really excited because I think I really understand what it's like to move out of a fast changing newsroom where things are moving so quickly, and then to go back into a newsroom that is completely changed, and then to be grappling with the fact that you're still looking after parents, you're still looking after kids, you're still having to balance your work and your home life. And so um, I am the facilitator, the anchor facilitator for the sessions, but I'm also your coach over the next 3 months. And so, what I'm hoping that we will do is to develop a career plan for every single one of us. And I'm going to start off by telling you why that's so important. I do speak really quickly, and sometimes when I'm sharing the PowerPoint, I can't see if someone's hand is up. So please don't worry about stopping me or interjecting or asking a question if you want to. So we've been doing a lot of training over this period, and looking at a lot of the research about what has been happening with COVID-19. And it doesn't matter if your country had a minimal impact or if it had a huge impact with lockdowns, etc. The reality is that COVID-19 has led to an even more dramatic shift online. I mean, the research by various organizations, including the Reuters Institute, but also, I mean, just research has been done on the African continent and in Asia, is we've seen a 300 to 400% increase on online media consumption. And so we know that if we've been resisting the idea of the fact that we need to be multi-platform journalists, that COVID-19 has really put paid to that. We've seen this huge shift online. We also know, and a number of you have mentioned it, is that the working from home is going to continue. Possibly we might move to a hybrid model where part of it's working from home, part of it is working from the office. But that itself, while it has a lot of advantages if you're a caregiver, it also has disadvantages because you're losing out on that office dynamic of learning from the people you're sitting next to, of being able to watch at close quarters. People are really good at their job, at the mentoring that happens in a newsroom. And so we need to kind of find new ways of operating with a virtual newsroom, and how we want to move from that. I can tell you that technological disruption is not going to end. If you just look, for example, of some of the changes that I'm going to show you in the next 30 minutes, you'll notice that the way we consume media is constantly changing. And as media producers, we really need to be open to change. We now know that the globe is a mobile first space. So we used to have kind of some people still going online on their laptops, on their workspaces, but the majority of us now are going online on our phones. And what we know, for example, is that this is a tiny, tiny screen. And so that mobile first identity is something that we need to be thinking of. And I'm so pleased that Corrine's going to be showing us how to do online mobile stories afterwards, because increasingly we're not only producing with our phones, we're definitely consuming with our phones. And without a doubt, the online consumption is increasing year on year. And so I'm just going to share with you some statistics from January 2021. We're looking at a population of about 7.8 billion in January, and of that we have 5.2 billion users, mobile phone users. So 66%, two-thirds of the world's population is actually using a mobile phone. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone using a mobile phone is actually online. What we do know as well, and I'm just trying to make sure that the chat, I'll be back on there now. I just want to make sure that the chat questions are not for me. I'll pull up chat. Yeah. And so what we do know is that internet access is currently around 4.6 billion. But what's been really interesting is that last year, internet and social media consumption actually increased with a higher year-on-year average, right? So it actually increased by about 7.3% last year, year-on-year, and we now have about 60% of the world's population is actually on the internet. Not everyone who's on the internet, though, is a user of social media, and so what we're having is about 53% of people who have access. 53% of the world population actually has internet, is using social media, and this, I must tell you, is a greater increase. You can see the increase for internet access and I just need to the increase for internet access is 7.3%, but in fact the increase for social media usage is in real numbers is actually higher. And I think I might, yeah, no. So we can see that we're definitely an online population. We're more online than ever before, but there are some essential differences. The Philippines has had the highest social media consumptions in the world. But what we do know, for example, is um, is that users in Japan, for example, have a much lower social media consumption. So we've got about more than 4 hours in the Philippines, and in Japan we've got on average less than an hour a day. So, but everyone actually is online. So what does that mean for us when we go back into the newsroom? So one of the things that I want to say is that we're in a constant state of change. Constant. The way we consume news has changed and it will continue to change. The way our audiences consume news has changed and it will continue to change. I think one of the big issues that we often have is the fact that our audiences sometimes are ahead of us when it comes to social media. And so you'll see that audiences are shifting and we're lagging slightly behind. And so one of the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves as journalists in this era is to be comfortable with change, right? Is to really have a comfort level where it's not so much that we're learning new social media platforms all the time, but we're learning about the ability to learn new social media platforms. So very often I say, it's not the fact that you know how to use WhatsApp or the fact that you know how people consume on Facebook. It's the fact that you're able to be comfortable with this constant need to change. There's constant need to think about social media stories, or how am I going to tell the story, or what's the best platform for the story, or if I'm using this platform for the story, what's the best way to actually tell it. And the reason why we do that is because, to be quite honest, a reader in Malaysia is not confined to Malaysian platforms only. They can read stories from anywhere in the world. And if you think about your own patterns of consumption, you'll notice that you are reading stories from a vast number of entities. You're not only reading local stories. And so what we have is an audience that has a lot more choices. And because they have a lot more choices, they are a lot more demanding. The next thing that we know, and the research shows this over and over again, is that people don't consume stories on only one platform. They consume stories on multiple platforms. The latest research actually shows that the overlap of platform usage. I mean, I think the average person is now using 6 social media platforms, and they reinforce each other. People are using Facebook, but they're also on Instagram, they're also on WhatsApp. And so when you're thinking about storytelling, we can no longer say, I mean, it's an anachronism to say, I'm a print journalist, I'm a TV journalist, I'm an online journalist. We must be multi-platform storytellers. We must be able to think about how our audience is going to consume, and then we need to be able to think, even if we don't know the technical skills, we need to be able to share different ways of telling stories in that way. The last 2 points are really important if you're a journalist, because I think it's the one thing that we hold, and it's how we monetize our websites in many ways. If our audience trusts us, right, they'll be more willing to pay. And so what we're finding is that media entities recognize that integrity is our currency, that trust is absolutely essential. And so, one of the core skills that we can have as journalists is the ability to be able to verify on the fly. So, when we're engaging with people, when we're checking information, when we're doing research, when we're sharing things on social media, that we really, really understand how to verify if the information is real or not. So just to reinforce how social media changes, I'm sure you've all seen this, right? The what happens in an internet minute. And I like to go back to different years and to look at what were we looking at in 2018, what were we looking at 2016, what are we looking like now? And even now, you will know, missing from this from the 2020, what happens in the internet minute is Zoom, is Signal, which has dramatically increased the number of users, is TikTok in greater numbers, etc. the year-on-year change is really dramatic. And so it just reinforces what I was saying early on about our need to be comfortable with change. Any questions? So let's just have a quick look at the numbers. These are actually 2021 numbers for a number of them. Some of the smaller ones are estimates that we're looking at, and I've taken them from Googled. I Googled to try and see if they had any audited figures, and so we have got an asterisk. It's where I'm not 100% sure that these numbers are up to date and accurate. But what we know is that Facebook is still the largest social media network, and WhatsApp is certainly the largest direct messaging network. WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, increasingly Viber. I mean, Signal came out of nowhere about 2 months ago when WhatsApp changed its terms and conditions. There was a dramatic shift to Signal. Signal went from not being even on the landscape of direct messaging to being in the top 20 of the UK within 2 weeks. So really, it reinforces that constant change that we're looking at. YouTube, if you look at the research about how people are using YouTube, they're using it as a search engine. It's the primary news outlet for young people between 13 and 19. The way its algorithms work make it quite compulsive viewing, but it reinforces also this idea that we are a very, very visual audience, and we're constantly looking for visual input in our storytelling. So quite a number of different platforms, and you can see that the way we consume is changing all the time. One thing we do know, and this is from the WAN-IFRA research, WAN-IFRA points out that 1 out of 4 people, right, before we get up in the morning and make coffee, before we wash our face, before we feed, the kids or anything, the first thing we do is we actually look at our phone and we're looking at apps. And so, to be clear, an app, Twitter is an app, Facebook is an app, WhatsApp is an app. All of these things that we have on our phone, as well as our news apps, are the things that we check before we do anything in the morning. And so what we know is that our audiences expect news to be pushed out to them. They're not going to our website necessarily and looking for something. A couple of big changes also happening, and we're going to come back to this over time. But for me, the idea of, there's so much change happening in the media landscape that we really need to be asking ourselves, okay, so what does it mean for me as a producer of news? And so I want to just show you a really quick way to think about it. The technology very often drives the consumption behavior. And so what we have is a situation where we have two types of media. We have lean to technology. So I'm leaning to my phone. I'm leaning to my laptop. I'm leaning to the radio. I'm driving in my car. I hear something I like on the radio. I lean to it just to see, to hear what the person is saying. When you're dealing with lean to technologies, you really are looking for an audience that wants quick updates, immediate news, and it's a busy environment. I'm sure by now you know that breaking news is digital. So news breaks on our phone, right? Before it gets to radio, before it gets to TV, before it gets to the newspaper, it's already breaking on our phone. When we're looking at lean to technology, it's short, sharp updates, right? It's the soundbite on radio. It's the 240 character update. And the way to kind of get this around your head is to think about Facebook, right? We all have that friend on Facebook that really likes to write those long updates where you have to click on it in order to see more. And chances are that you're not going to click on it unless it's really compelling. Because the reality is that lean to technology, social media, your phone, your mobile, the radio, all of that is short and sharp. But when I'm reading the newspaper, I'm leaning back. When I'm sitting in front of the TV, I'm leaning back. When I'm with my iPad and I'm swiping as opposed to scrolling, I'm leaning back. Then I want slower, more in depth. I want higher quality. I have higher expectations of uniqueness when I'm looking at lean back technology. So you really need to be kind of thinking about how am I telling my stories, right? It's not a one size fits all anymore. You really need to be thinking about how the audience is going to consume it. Other trends that we are looking at, and this comes from the Reuters journalism and media technology trends, um, really that we're seeing, um, and just as we're very, very visual, people are also looking for the option to listen to the news. And so you're going onto websites and you're getting the option of listening to the story or reading the story. You have an option to listen to the podcast of behind the news, or even on radio. Increasingly, radio stations are allowing you to watch the radio program by live streaming it on the internet, or by listening to the radio program afterwards by downloading the podcast. So Reuters research actually shows that more than half of publishers see podcasting as a future product. We also have a situation of as the technology changes and we get better headphones and the earpods become a thing of the future, that more and more people are actually looking at audio formats. And then we've got transcriptions, we've got automated translations. All of these things, Reuters is predicting, is going to actually have mass adaptation this year, or in the years to come. And the reality is that while people are concerned about the future of journalism in an era of increased attacks on journalism, on the kind of rise of disinformation and misinformation, people are quite confident that sooner or later we're going to find a model that works for the business of journalism. So lots of things to be thinking about as someone who's going back into the newsroom. What does this mean for your career? What does this mean for the way you're going to interact, the kinds of products you're looking at, the kinds of skills that you're going to need, etc. I mean, even when you are looking at how we're going to generate income, we really have a situation where we're still looking at, are we going to do reader revenue? So, for example, whether it's membership models or subscriptions or even events, whether we're going to do advertising, what is the mixture, what is the formula for actually generating income in a media world? And then, of course, we're looking at issues of more and more websites are looking for registrations, and the reason why they're doing that is because data and information about our audience is becoming really, really important. So what does this mean? And I want to segue here into what we're going to be doing from a coaching perspective. What it really means is that there really is one only thing that we can be sure about. And it's what we're going to be tackling over the next 3 months, but of course it's ongoing. And that is that change is constant. That we really need to be thinking about. We can't get too comfortable. We need to have learning environments. We need to constantly be learning new skills, be finding new ways of telling our stories. What it also means, though, is that journalism used to be fairly simple. You could really just focus on editing or writing, and you could focus on one thing. You could be skilled in one thing. You could be skilled as an editor. But now, increasingly, we know that media leaders must evolve and really assume a diverse range of responsibilities. A few years back, WAN-IFRA actually did research amongst editors and said to them, um, what do you wish you had known when you were starting out in journalism? And a number of people said, if I had known how much of my work really relied on my understanding of business or my understanding of technical issues, I would have actually done um, I would have studied outside of journalism. I wouldn't necessarily have done communications. I would have done an MBA. Because increasingly what we're finding is to be an effective journalist, to be an effective media person, we really do need to have a much broader range of skills. And the reality is that increasingly that is up to us to be able to make sure that we are lifelong learners. And the world is incredible. I mean, apart from this fellowship that really allows you to learn from the best, like Corrinne, there are also lots of opportunities. Last week, actually, I did the Night Foundation's newsletter course. Just not necessarily because I want to start a newsletter, but because I want to hear what people are saying. What are the skills that people are talking about? What are the issues I need to know about newsletters, etc. And so we know that there are just lots and lots of opportunities to just keep on growing. And so there are really two things I want you to ask yourself. I want you to approach your career from the perspective of the people you serve, the audiences, whether they on radio, on TV, in newspapers, or online, right? What do our audiences value, and what are the new opportunities? If we're talking about people constantly being given opportunities to change where they get the information from, to get new ways of storytelling, can I be receptive to what they value and what they might, the way they might want to have their stories told? And then the second question I really want you to ask yourself is, what are the skills that we need to succeed in disruption? Um, what are the skills do I need to succeed in disruption? So, do I need to have a greater knowledge of technical issues? Do I need to have some practical skills of storytelling on multiple platforms? Do I need to really be able to manage my boss? Do I need to be able to negotiate better hours? Do I need to be able to speak up for myself? Do I need negotiation skills so that I can negotiate when I'm when I'm re-entering the workplace? What are the skills that we actually need in order to succeed? And so, what we're hoping to do is over the next 3 months, everyone will have an opportunity for one-on-one coaching sessions, and we're going to try and answer some of these questions. So what I want to do today is to say to you that really, what is coaching, right? So the thing about coaching is that it really is a planned process, right? It's a planned process. It's not you and I just chatting and finding out what's up. It really is a planned process that links up to direct guidance, right? In order to learn and develop specific skills that can be implemented in the workplace. I want to make it quite clear, though, that in the coaching process, this is your process. This is a process in which you really decide what needs to be achieved over a specific period of time. I am not going to do it for you. It really is up to you. And so that process really is the amount we achieve or not or don't achieve really is up to you in terms of how much you want to be done. So it's very specific to the person who is being coached. It's not a one size fits all. I don't have this is what we're going to do in this session. We have a plan that we want to achieve, but it is entirely up to your specific needs and your specific desires. And so really what we are doing is we're developing what needs to be done according to your needs. It's not editing. It's not me kind of going through and giving you a boom, 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 boom. This is what you need to do in order to succeed. This is what you need to do when you go back into the newsroom. It's a lot more intimate and personal. It's really about identifying what are the issues that are holding you back. What are the potential ways that you can actually tackle those issues, and how do you move forward? And so we do spend some time making sure that there is a process of of mutual respect. And so before we actually end the session today, I'm going to really talk about what are the things that you need in order for us to make sure that the training sessions over the next 3 months really kind of meet your needs, and what are the ground rules we need to put in place in order to ensure that that happens. Because what we want to do is we want to have shared goals of what good work will be. So at the end of the process, we really want to be able to understand what you would regard as success and what I would regard as success. So we're going to talk about this in greater detail when we do the coaching sessions, but I want you to say that the career development plan process really has 4 steps. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to set goals. And in order to set goals, we really have to identify, so what do you want to achieve? And when we identify what we want to achieve, we really are looking at you as a whole person, not just in terms of the workplace, but also in terms of your personal being, in terms of your family, in terms of your environment. And so the 4 steps are setting goals, reviewing your current reality. So what are we dealing with? How are we going to close the gap? If this is where we want to go and this is where we are, what do we need to do in order to close the gap? And then we're going to put together an action plan so that by the end of the process, you really are you are taking steps towards what you want to achieve. When we set goals, we're going to consider, as I was saying, all facets of your life, and we're really going to set SMART goals. They're going to be specific to you, they're going to be measurable, so we want to be able to say that um, that this is how we will know we've actually achieved the goals. We want them to be achievable, we want them to be realistic, but most importantly, we want them to be time bound. And so what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at what do we want to achieve by the end of the fellowship, what do we want to achieve within a year, and what do we want to achieve within the next 3 years. I want to tell you that when you look at various trainings, I mean, they're all different types of trainings that you can achieve. But the training that has the greatest impact, in my view, as someone who trains all the time, actually is this longer term coaching-based training. Junie will tell you that in other coaching-based training programs that we have, we can see the long-term impact of it because it's not only your new skills for you to learn, but also this is how you can actually implement it in your workplace. So really, there's an incredible opportunity here for you to set ambitious goals and for us to try and make a plan in order for you um, um, to in order for you to meet them. When we review your current reality, it's going to really require a measure of trust between us, but also, and I will say this right now, that when we are talking about the ground rules, I'm going to say that the coaching process is built on confidentiality. So even though I have to report back to say I've done coaching sessions with everyone, what I don't have to do is to say I had coaching sessions with everyone and this is what people say. In fact, what we will do as much as possible is in these sessions, if at any stage you feel uncomfortable with something being recorded, if you want to share within a confidential environment, we will be respectful of that. And we will make sure that any confidential issues are not actually shared beyond this group. So when we're reviewing the reality, we really are going to ask, what are your current work challenges and what or who is holding you back from your goals? Now, to be quite honest, a lot of this discussion very often has to talk about our roles as caregivers in our families, our roles as from a career point of view, and so really we want to be talking about not just in terms of what's happening in the workplace, but if there are issues that make you reluctant to actually put your hand up, that we can actually talk about those as well. When we are looking at reviewing reality, we also want to make sure that we have an ability to be able to reach out and set realistic goals. So what is so not necessarily to change the entire world, but basically to kind of look at the one thing that would change your life if you were most able to achieve it. What are the immediate changes that you can implement? What would your best self do in order to achieve this bigger thing that you want? Is it possible that your goal is too big and that we need to break it up into steps? And then, to be quite honest, very often I like to think about your old self as your real self. So this is what I really want to achieve, but this is what everyone expects me to achieve. And so sometimes we confuse the two. The pressure that everyone else puts on us makes us assume that their goals are in fact our goals. And so some of the stuff that we will be talking your you truly. And then, having identified where you are, where you want to go, what the gap is in between, we really are going to be asking ourselves, okay, right? I mean, if I'm going to get from A to C, what are the things I need in place? And sometimes it is as simple as I need to learn to speak up for myself. I need to work harder. I need to have better time management. I need to, right? It can be something that we can deal with almost immediately. But if it's a longer term 4 year, 5 year goal plan, it might be I need to finally register for that course I've been wanting to do and saying I'm going to do. And so, in order to do that, I need to put in place the steps in order to register it. And so, by the end of the process, what we really want is to have an action plan that really kind of starts with the ability to be able to set real goals. And so this action plan is what do I need in order to meet my goals? Do I need training, mentoring, or even a new qualification? And what support do I need for it, right? Do I need to speak to my family in order to take some of the load off me? Do I need to join a support group? Do I need to actually get support maybe from a faith-based center? What do I need in order to achieve that? And so that's really the process that we're going to be going through over the next 3 months. It is a quite an intense process, and I think that what we'll be looking at is looking at what works for you. I saw that Jun Lee's comment about the process of coaching. I want to say that over the years we've coached a number of editors within the WAN-IFRA different programs. I'm currently I'm coaching the woman who is leading Kenya's COVID process. So coaching does happen, as Junie is saying, at different levels, right? I mean, it happens. I have a coach. I am a coach who believes in coaching, and so I run a company. I meet with my coach not as often as I used to when I first started with my coach. I meet with her now once a quarter, or when I'm grappling with a particular issue and I need to talk it through with someone, I meet with my coach. And I have many people who I still interact with, who I've coached over the year, who I still sit down in order to have a conversation. The thing about coaching is that it doesn't tell you what to do. Coaching really is a process of helping you to identify what you need to do. And so it's through a process of a series of discussions, a series of questions. Um, and I'm hoping that you will pick up a lot of the coaching processes from me and use it for staff when you are managing people. Because effective coaching is so much better than fixing. Fixing is when you say to someone, do this, do A, B, C. Go to your boss and say A, B, C, D. But coaching is really about getting somebody to the point where they are able to work through the process in their own mind and do it themselves. So, so I'm really excited about the coaching process because I really feel that one of the things that journalists often do is they allow their careers to basically unfold. And so when I was working in the newsroom, and even in my years of training media managers, one of the things that stands out is the number of media managers who applied for a job or took a new position, not because they had a plan that said, after 5 years, this is where I want to be, but because somebody said to them, this might be a good job for you, you should apply. Or I think you'd be good at that, you should apply. And so very often their careers are actually determined by external influences as opposed to saying, you know what, this is where I want to be in 5 years' time. These are the skills I need. This is what I want to do. So let me get a mentor who can help me get into those circles. Let me network in order to build a new way of engaging with people. Let me learn how to negotiate. Let me learn how to do online development because down the line, this is where I want to be. And so, what we're going to be doing over the next 3 months is to be putting together a career development plan. We're going to have at least 2 sessions each with everyone, and really to be able to look at how that works.
Because there's a lot to cover in 30 minutes. Okie doke. That's a picture of me in Vietnam. Oh, gosh, I can't wait to go back to it. It's such a beautiful country. Those of you who are there. Okay, so that's me. I had the chance to go and do some work with VNA. Those of you who worked with VNA, you might see yourself in that shot. And as Junie mentioned, I also do occasional lecturing, but most of what I do is this. Okay, so this is what we're going to try and cover. And I also wanted to speak very briefly to those of you who are doing elderly care. So at the beginning of the pandemic, my life for the last 3 years prior to that was traveling the world and doing face-to-face training. And of course, that came to a screeching halt. And so I've had to turn my business into something that's online. And it, it goes in fits and starts, right? That's the sort of nature of freelancing, but also the nature of pivots. And again, just giving yourself time, I think, is really important. Yeah, and also just acknowledging that you're not working, you're just not getting paid for it. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we're going to have a shot at covering in a sort of surface way. Okay, so your smartphone is a single device that you can use for news gathering via news apps, Facebook groups, and Twitter lists. I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about those too, because Twitter lists in particular are not terribly well used. It is also a storytelling device in your pocket that you can use for filming, editing, podcasting, photography, and all sorts of stuff, including personal brand building. And you can use it to make phone calls. One of the things I particularly like about it for women, and we do have a lot of women in the room, when I was last in a newsroom, most of our TV journalists who were getting opportunities were men, and I had to ask permission to use the equipment. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so terribly excited by a device that I actually own. Thank you very much. So I think it's, you have the opportunity to do some practice and get into some of the silos in newsrooms that would otherwise be closed off. So for news gathering, I think it's just good practice, to have a bunch of news apps on your phone. Google News, so there is an app that will, for better or worse, whether or not it's paying for it, both Google and Microsoft have news apps, which you can just pop on your phone and just get back into the habit of doing the daily reading in. Similarly, Associated Press and Reuters, Reuters is brilliant. Everything that they put on the wire, they also put on their news app, and it's quite good for searchable content. And then, of course, there's The Guardian. Asia News was one that I found that was a sort of regional news app. And I'd love it if it's the only one in that list that is Android only. Everything else is iOS and Android. I'd love it if you could pop into the chat if you've got favorite news apps yourselves, just so others can see which apps you're using to keep across the news agenda. Then there's Facebook groups, and there's a whole bunch. So in the Word document I've given you guys, I'll just talk you through what these are. News Media and Publishing is a private group which is Facebook run, and it's for people working in journalism. So that's where they'll say, we're going to change the algorithm, for example, or they might more likely say, we changed it last Tuesday and we didn't tell you. But at least you get a sort of heads up about things that are happening. Similarly, Instagram for publishers and creators is a private group. So the links for all of these groups are in that Word document. The Social Media Geek Out is run by a guy called Matt, who's based in London, and it's just really, really helpful. It's a place for social media managers to get together. Mojo Fest is one for mobile journalism, and I'll show you the link for it in a bit. It has around 7,000 members from all around the world. It's a public group, so just really useful, particularly for apps and equipment. Engaged Journalism is run by the European Journalism Centre, and it's a way of really getting into the mindset of rethinking our relationship with the audience so that it's not us telling them stuff, it's more of a conversation. That's called Engaged Journalism, and there's a Facebook group for it. Then there's a few others there that I just thought were quite useful, and they're all quite active. So none of them are, you know, last post 6 months ago. They're all fairly regular postings. The ABU is the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, which is headquartered in KL, and it's got a great group for radio. Freelance Journalists of Asia is quite useful for gigs. Not fantastically useful, but not useful. And the last one there, Infographics and Data Viz. So if you want to start getting your head around these sorts of things, that's a really useful Facebook group. Twitter lists. I don't know if you guys use Twitter lists at all, but I find them super helpful. I've been on Twitter since 2011, and my job has changed about 5 times since then. So the people that I followed 10 years ago are pretty much irrelevant to me now. So I'll just show you quickly how you do that. If you're on Twitter, you'll see that there's these 3 dots next to any person's name. And if you click on that, you have the option to add or remove someone from lists. I do recommend doing this on a desktop because you can't create new lists on a mobile. Thank you, Twitter. But you can do it on a desktop. So up here, I can create a new list, or I could add Glenn to one of my existing lists. And you'll see some of my lists there. The ones that have got a little padlock next to them are locked. They're visible only to me. And the other ones are public. So, you know, you can create a list, and then when you create it, you can make it public or private. So what's the purpose of lists? Well, here's mine. I just find it a really good way of getting across the conversation in a specific topic. Twitter has recently started suggesting new lists based on who you follow and where you're located. So just a very useful thing that I don't think we make enough of these days. Okay, so those, and I've just put some links in the Word document to a couple of lists that I like. One is a list of news outlets on Twitter. Marketing Twitter is great for social media and marketing gurus. And mobile journalism is one that I put together a while ago, which is people who are practicing mobile journalism. Okay, let's get stuck into smartphone storytelling. Please feel free to pop questions in the chat. Also, I just got one of those really weird names. So you can email me, or you can follow me on Twitter and direct message me. I'm the only Corrinne Podger on Twitter. Okay. So smartphone cameras, let's talk about that first. The rear camera tends to be better than the selfie camera. So that's the first lesson, is try not to film yourself looking at the camera, try and film using the camera at the back. If you plug in a microphone, or in fact your headset, you will get better audio. That's just a straightforward thing. There's a broadcast quality microphone on your smartphone headset. If you don't have a headphone port, which is those little round ones that we had on phones a few years ago, you will need a 3.5 millimeter to lightning adapter to plug in this microphone in the middle here. You can see it's got the old-fashioned jack, or a 3.5 millimeter to USB. That should actually be USB-C, by the way. So that would plug into the Samsungs and things like that. Do you need one? No. You can get away with just using your headset, but I would encourage you, particularly for interviews, to use an external microphone. You'll just get a better quality sound. Do you need equipment? It's nice to buy a reasonably cheap tripod, and then you can buy a cheap or expensive tripod mount. Basically what that does is the thing in the middle allows you to attach your phone to any tripod. And the reason for doing this is that wobbly shots immediately say amateur. And I don't know what it is, just a stable shot, even if it's not of anything particularly interesting, says professional. I've seen people use all sorts of stuff to stabilize their phone. You can lean against something, you can hold your hands really close to your body. If I'm in an office, I sometimes rest my elbows on the back of a chair to film someone. So you don't have to have this stuff, it just is helpful. Similarly, you don't need a light, but it is helpful inside. And if you don't have a light, film during the day. You can also turn your camera flash on and leave it on, particularly if you're filming an interview indoors. Okay, lots of apps. These are my favorites. There are download links to all of these in the Word document. Do you have to spend money? No, you don't. I've put Pro Camera because I think it's a pretty good photography app. Filmic Pro is the industry standard for filming, but the native camera on any phone that's younger than 3 years is good enough, to be honest. Video editing, VN is an app that I'm going to try and show you quickly today. It is free and it's revolutionary, right? It pretty much replaces all of the other free apps because it's a multi-track editor and it's available not just on iOS, but as we'll see in a minute, on Android as well. iMovie is free. Lumafusion is an industry standard app with very active Facebook groups, but you know, it's $50. To get started, don't worry about it, just download VN. You can edit audio on an iPhone with an app called Ferrite, but you don't need to. You can just download Audacity onto your laptop or desktop and it is free. And photo editing, Snapseed, simple and free. For Androids, I just wanted to give those of you who are into photography a couple of options. So the option for photography for Android is ProCam X, which is a $5. For filming, again, there's a version of Filmic Pro for Androids. Android owners are lucky because there's also a professional app called Open Camera, and it's open because it's open source. So it's free and it does both photography and video. So you could give that a go. It's got a pretty good website. You know, it's a bit geeky, but you know, we're tech people, we can handle it. So Open Camera. Video editing, I just recommend VN these days. Audio editing, you can't really edit on an Android phone, so Audacity on laptop is your friend, and photo editing, Snapseed. More apps and help, because everyone's going, what? That's just a list. Don't do that to us. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I wrote a free online guide, which was published by CAS Media Asia, which is in Singapore, the Mobile Journalism Manual for Reporters and Newsrooms. And you're in luck because I have to update it in the next week and a half. So all the tutorials, all the apps, all the links, etc., will be updated. So if you just bookmark your calendar for something like the 30th of April, it will be completely refreshed. And it includes step-by-step guides to filming and how to do mobile journalism, and also a lot of case studies. And it's free. So, okay, so the filming basics. Please, going forward, please film holding your phone vertically, horizontally, right? So like that, not like this. Unless you're filming for TikTok or Instagram Reels, please film horizontally. It captures more information. You can take a vertical crop of a horizontal shot, but it's really difficult to take a horizontal shot of a vertical shot, if that makes sense. It's just, you just wind up having to zoom in and losing information. Keep most of your shots still. You know, we tend, when we're starting out with filming, we tend to act like we're on holidays, you know, just going, oh, look, it's an interesting thing. Oh, look, there's an interesting thing. Oh, look. Video journalists call that fire hosing. It's like you're using the phone to put out a fire. What you want is to hold the phone still and film for around 5 to 7 seconds per shot. It uses less memory and it looks professional. And The other thing that a lot of people do when we start out is we film lots of wide shots, right? So the whole room and, oh, the whole room and the whole room. For every wide shot, step into the shot and film things up close. This 3 close-ups for every wide or medium shot is a rule of thumb that was suggested by a guy who just does mobile journalism at the Irish public broadcaster RTE. His name is Philip Bromwell, and his work is beautiful, actually. So perhaps someone could type into the chat at Philip with 1 L, Bromwell with 2 L's on the end, and you could look him up on Twitter. It's just these 4 things will immediately up your game. Shot types. So really there are 3 basic kinds of shots, and then there's lots more, but the 3 basics are close-ups for detail, emotion, and variety, right? It's a change for the eye to look at something up close after it's seen something in a wide shot in location. Medium shots are the conversation sort of distance from somebody. It's where the story happens. So a lot of your shots when you're storytelling will be medium shots. And then the wide shot, you actually don't need too many of these. They provide context. They give you a sense of location. You can take a shot outside, like, you know, this is where the action is happening, and then an inside shot, and you may not need more than 1 or 2. So those are just the basics: close-ups, mediums, and wides. Sequences are different shots of the same subject, and those shots can be cut together to look like the activity is happening in real time, but you're sort of hopping around the person while they're doing it. They help hide cuts. Okay, so if you needed to cut a longer interview, you could put a few of these over the top of that interview, and it acts like a sort of visual band-aid. You can't see the cut. And it also provides variety. So you can see here there's the hands and the eyes, and then there's a medium shot on the bottom left of the same subject. Then the journalist has hopped around behind the person and done what's called an over-the-shoulder shot. So it connects who's doing the activity and what they're doing. And then something that's a bit more creative. So go in really close on what they're doing, film them from below, film them from above. These 5 shots are what's known as the 5-shot rule, okay? So these sorts of things of shot types, close-up, medium, and wide, and 5-shot sequences will get you started with video storytelling. Interview shots typically will be a medium close-up. If you imagine the top of your sort of shirt, just at the top of your shirt there, and then a close-up would be just at the top of the bottom of a collar, basically. You can see in both of these shots that there's not too much space above either of these gentlemen's heads. So if you get your subject to fill the frame like that, that way it's a classic interview shot. Big mistake people often make is way too much headroom. You can see the space I've just created above my head. That's still too much, still too much, still too much, still too much. And that's about right. So you can just see that there's a little bit of space above my head. Try to keep the lens of the camera in line with the eyes of the person. Right now, my laptop is on a book, but it's not dead on. I'm still looking down a little bit. So if I bring this up a little bit so it's dead in line with my eyes, you can see that that's where the camera lens needs to be. Keep your camera still. So if you haven't got a tripod, rest it on something. Just make sure that it's not moving all over the place. Ask your interviewee to keep their eyes still. So what they tend to do if they're filming is they'll flick between you and where and the camera lens. So you have to ask people to find somewhere on the wall, off in the distance. Have you found it? Yes, I have. Great. Don't look at me. Just look in that direction and then ask your questions. It's a really good tip if you don't have a tripod, right? So you can rest your phone on something. You're still looking at it, but your interviewee is actually looking off to one side. Try to keep your interviews short. In a news package, your interview will probably run for about 15, 20 seconds. So if you just ask 1 or 2 questions, then you'll have the content that you need. So short still shots, short interviews will really get you started. Okay, so VN. video editor, free. I'm still in shock that this app is free. So the app developer is a lovely guy who's based in Hong Kong, actually, and his monetization strategy is he also sells software for Macs. So that's how he's making his money. VN works on iPhones, Androids, Macs, and PCs. You can use it for simple all the way up to professional projects. I just had confirmed today that people at the BBC are using this app. It has an amazingly good YouTube channel with tutorials. So it's super, super simple. I'm going to see if I can do a quick demo at the end. Let's see how we go. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. And it's just, yeah, it's a wonderful app. So we'll come back to this. So I want you guys to take a photograph of this slide. I mean, you will get a recording, but it's just going to save you time. This is an activity I'd like you to do in the next couple of days. And I'm going to ask you to just pop it on YouTube or like as a private video, or you can put it in Google Docs, or you can send it to me on WhatsApp, however you like, and I'll give you some feedback. So film 10 shots at your house, 3 close-ups, 3 medium shots, 1 wide. Hold the phone still, keep each shot to 7 seconds, and film 1 interview. It can be just really something simple. My favorite time of day, my favorite spot in the house. I really love a cup of tea, for about 30 seconds. And the main thing is keep the lens level with the eyes. If you can remember to plug your headset into your phone, bonus points. When you're doing your interview, it will just give you better sound. So does it make sense? Hopefully. I will also take a screenshot and then I'll just pop it in the chat afterwards. Okay, so, and then have a go at editing it in VN. You know what, about 3 weeks ago, I was running some media training for journos actually in this part of the world on Zoom. I showed them how to use VN, gave them that exercise, and I literally crossed my fingers. I thought, oh, I just hope it's fine. I know how to do this stuff, but oh, and you know what? Everyone managed to absolutely nail it and produce a short video with music. It was amazing. So it's not rocket science, which is wonderful. And if you send me a link by the 30th of April, I'll give you feedback. Okay, quickly, newsletter tools. I'm on time. I love it. Great. I'll have time to show you that app. Fantastic. I just want to talk you through 2, okay? Oh, podcasts. Let's come to podcasts first. Let's come back to podcasts. All right. LinkedIn Articles is the newsletter tool on LinkedIn. Now, I'm mentioning this because you should start to post your content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where editors and journalism think tanks and NGOs as well, if you're thinking about doing a sort of mix of freelance work, that's where they all hang out. So you can, of course, go and set up a Substack if you want to, but you'll be setting up your audience from scratch. Whereas if you're on LinkedIn and you start to connect with your old colleagues, your new colleagues, people you're meeting on this course, then you can start to produce content there. You can put posts there, which look just like Facebook posts. You can also write longer posts on LinkedIn, which is called articles. And it's literally at the top of LinkedIn, it'll give you the option to write an article and it looks just like WordPress. You can add images, videos, slide decks, links, snippets. I've got no idea what snippets do. I wouldn't even bother. But I just think, you know, just a basic blog, if there's things that you want to start to talk about in public, pop them on LinkedIn, and that'll help start getting you noticed by your network. The other one I'm really interested in is Twitter Review. So Review was established in 2015, and it was acquired by Twitter in January. There's links to both of these things in the handout, so the Word document. It allows you to distribute free and paid newsletters. And it's really simple. You just click on it, name your newsletter, start writing the thing and send it off. So those are a couple of options for newsletters. Now let's just hop back up to podcasts because I did say I would cover it. So make, music, edit, visualize. Making a podcast, I have to say I really like Podbean. Podbean is an audio hosting site. This is where audio that you make lives. But it also has an app that you can use to record a podcast on your phone. Super simple. Anchor is another one, which is a bit younger than Podbean. They are both very straightforward. They both have excellent guides on their websites, and they both offer show analytics. Free music. Everyone's like, oh, where do I get music from? YouTube has a thing called the audio library, which is music and sound effects. You can download MP3s from there and use them in your podcast. Royalty free, and it'll go anywhere. So you don't need to worry about negotiating a license. Editing on Audacity, the guide I've given you guys includes a quick guide, the full manual, a YouTube tutorial, etc. Audacity is fairly straightforward. And the last one is just really a toy, right? Which is a visualizer. So, you know, sometimes you'll see on social media, you'll see an image and it's got that cool little moving waveform. You can make those for free with a tool called Headliner. It's also got some other things on there. There's a video editor on there, and there's a transcription tool and lots of other things. But this toy, which allows you to turn audio, which is invisible, into visible content, is called Headliner. Okay, still got 4 minutes. Great, I'm on track. So that's my email address down the bottom there. And I think we'll be connecting again in May. So I'm really looking forward to keeping in touch. Now I want to stop sharing for a second, see if there's any questions. How are you guys going? Any questions? That was a lot. That was a huge dump, wasn't it? Stop beeping. Okay, no questions. Okay, great. Does this mean I've got time then? I have to show you 3 minutes to show you VN. Great. Okay. I just need to, hang on. I need to turn off the alarm so that I don't beep in the middle of this thing. Screen mirroring, MacBook. Come on. It's just having a moment. There it is. Fabulous. Okay. Share screen. iPhone. Share. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen there. 2 minutes too. We've got plenty of time. We almost have a coffee. Okay. Unfortunately, when I screen share, you won't be able to hear the audio of the video. But actually that's a good thing, because then I can keep talking and explain it. So VN looks like this. Hang on, let's get out of there. Discard. That's my mum, by the way. Okay, so when you open VN, it will give you a plus button down the bottom here, and you just tap on that, and it's literally new project. I've put some shots into my phone from today. There's an interview with my mum, and then there's some overlay shots, right? Do you remember I was talking about the close-ups, mediums, and wides? So I'm going to choose my mum as the interview shot, and I'm just going to then press this little blue button to create a timeline. Okay, so there's my mum. She's very cute. And I asked her a question. Let's just see if it'll play. I don't think it will. Nope, I'm waiting for her to start speaking, because that's where I want to make the first cut. Question, question, question. There she is. So she's opened her mouth. So I know that that's where she started answering the question. And down the bottom here, I can tap this little thing here which says split. And then I can select anything by tapping on it, makes it yellow. And I don't want the beginning bit, so I'm just going to tap delete. So now I've got the start of my interview right there, and she's talking about gardening. So she's saying, oh, we love gardening. One of the things I like doing is gardening. I'm also going to clean up the end. And you'll see at the end it says directed by VN. I can actually get rid of the credits, so I don't want that. So I'm going to delete that as well. So I've got about, I don't know however many seconds I've got, not terribly many, 17 seconds. Now here I've got another video line here, right, where it says stickers. I can actually add, oh, not stickers, sorry. Where's my, hang on. Don't get old, guys. It's really tricky. Stock sticker. Oh, yep. So I can add a subtitle here if I want. So I could put my mum's name. It's misbehaving a little bit because I'm screen sharing, I think. So there's my mum's name. I'll just put that down there. And you can see that that's actually, I could move that anywhere, right? Just by holding things down. Ah, there we go. Oh, they've renamed it. They've called it stocks. That's not at all helpful. So tapping on that next line up, stocks, that'll take me to some of the overlay that I shot. So I'm going to choose this one. And I'll use 2 fingers to just squeeze it in and make it a bit shorter. And then I'll find another one around about here. Stocks. And I'm going to grab a close-up. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger by using 2 fingers. And there we go, drag the end, and I'll put one more there. Stocks. And that one. Okay, so now I've got my mum talking about gardening. And then there's a shot. Oh. And another one and another one. Oh, this is really interesting. They've just recently updated this app. It didn't used to do that. Like last week, it didn't used to do that. So let's have a 20-second look at this app. So there's my mum. It's explaining who she is. I can make this a bit shorter, so it's just appearing on her. There we go. That's better. It's not hard, I guess, is the point I'm making. So there's the back garden, and she's still talking. I love gardening. She's helping us out in the garden, da, 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 da. You see there's a little jump cuts there between those 3 shots. So what I need to do now is just make this a bit wider and make sure I get rid of those spaces. You see there's a space there. So I'm going to pick this one up and just literally move it over. And pick this one up and literally move it over. Last thing I want to show you about this app is that there's free music. There's some pretty cheesy ones actually, but anyway, import from link, extract from video. And so you could import from iTunes. There's also some free in-app music, which is, it's a bit cheesy, but it's free. How are we doing? We're 3 minutes over. That's as fast as I can go. Please put your mics on. I'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts.
Is it okay if I interview a cat?
Of course it's okay if you interview a cat. When I was teaching last year at Sydney Uni, one of my students interviewed their dog. And in fact, you know, last year was a crazy year. And a lot of my students, university students, were in lockdown either in Sydney or in China, right? Because I was teaching at Sydney Uni, and a lot of people legged it out of the country to make sure they got home. But then they were dialing in from, you know, Shanghai and Beijing and all sorts of places. Hello. Lily's little one is here. Hey, how you doing? And look, you know, I think the way I got good at using my smartphone was I started making content for my nephews. So I actually don't have kids. I'm a very proud auntie of 2 boys. And so I used to make stuff for them. You know, when I was living in London, I used to make stuff about, you know, I'm just going on a walk to St. Paul's or whatever. And I still just make stuff for fun for them. So I would recommend taking some family shots and making a fun video about your family, or recording some interviews with your parents. You know, my mum and dad are in their 80s, and it's on my mind to interview my mum, you know, while I still have her. So, and maybe digitizing some photographs of when she was younger. Why not, right? Those things are very straightforward. So Dear friends, that's the end. Please feel free to go slowly through that slide deck, have a look at some of the tutorial content, and then I'll put my email in the chat. Just make sure you take a copy of the chat, because at the end of the meetings, we know what happens to the chat. Vanishes like the morning dew. Just so frustrating. That's my email address. Back to you, Junie.
Great. Thank you so much, Corrinne.
Yes.
Thanks so much. It was really useful, and so easy to understand. I really appreciated it. And I suppose, Corrinne, the thing is to do it, right? I mean, the way that you actually build your skills around this is to go out there and to do it, and to make the mistakes and just to redo it.
There's no, yeah, absolutely. You know what? When you're doing stuff on your own phone, it's yours. And I think the two things that I would say is, the first thing is, I mean, I've taught a lot of people this stuff. The people who don't practice don't learn. The end. But also, you know, when we're kids, like I often use the analogy of toddlers, right? Like, imagine if your kids, they fell over the first time and they were like, oh, walking's not for me. I'm no good at walking, right? And I think as adults, we have to allow ourselves the same latitude to say, it's the first time you've ever done it in your whole life. Give yourself a break, you know? So I think if we practice something for 10 minutes a day for a week, at the end of a week, you'll have spent an hour. At the end of a month, you'll have spent 4 hours. And then you just go from there.
Yeah. And so thanks very much, Corrinne. Lots of stuff to do before we meet again on the 21st of April. I just want to go through and remind you. So from Wednesday to Friday, you saw the program that Eunice shared. We've got the Asian Media E-Summit. And I'm going to ask you, I will also be attending and obviously Jenny will be there, she's convening, but I do want you to think about what you're going to share with us on the 21st. And I want you to look out for two specific things. I want you to be able to share a skill that you learned during the summit, but I also want you to think of 5 facts or trends that you picked up from just listening to people's discussions. So that's the first thing. The summit is from Wednesday to Friday, so please attend as many sessions as you can. And I would really advise that you take a look at the program, identify the issues that are critical to you, and make an effort to be there and to participate. Even prepare ahead of time in terms of what you want to ask about, etc. And then come back and share with us on the 21st a skill you learned, as well as 5 facts or trends that you picked up. The second thing, obviously, is to do your practice, your film practice, your various shots, your sequences, your interviews, and then to use VN to put them together and to share them with Corrinne. But also we'll try and see if there's a way to share it with everyone else. We're hoping to do our first coaching session for those of you who are available before the 21st of April. And so Jen is going to be sending out an email just reminding you of the coaching and when I am available. It's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in your early afternoon. So So those 3 things, the summit Wednesday to Friday, your film practice, and then setting up your coaching appointment with me so we can get started on your career development plan. That brings us to the end of the first session. I'll see you at the summit. I'll also see you on the 21st.